Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Houston Sharpshooters Draft to Glory franchise mode here in NHL 22. So in last episode, we had the offseason. We had a pretty solid draft, I'd say. We got a NHL ready top 6'4" prospect that is already going to be playing on our NHL roster just because we want to see if we could get him some fast development. But as you can see, he is a 76 overall, listed as a depth forward. Should be interesting to see what he could do, and hopefully he could help out the defensive side on that bottom six. Yeah, our roster in general is going through a decent amount of changes, I'd say, but Morgan Griffin being in the NHL lineup, I think I'm very excited for. He did play 2 playoff games with us last year and had 1 goal, and in the AHL last season, as I mentioned in the previous episodes, he had 103 points, which is insane. I've never seen an AHL defender do that. So with his 99 offensive awareness and stuff like that, I'm very much hoping he could help out our power play unit and hopefully drive the offense a bit on our roster. And yeah, once his contract is up, I am going to have to re-sign that guy probably to a really big expensive deal, I'm guessing, just because of the fact he's probably going to be a pretty good player, I'm guessing, even though he's only a low top 4 potential player. Like, he's already listed as a top 4 D-man, which is kind of weird. Don't know if it's just because of how the league is or what, but... And then there is our goaltending tandem. As you can see, we did lose Benson to the offseason, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, we kind of had to because I didn't want to give a guy like him $6 million. We could have probably ended up doing that, but it is what it is. And yeah, our team still looks somewhat decent. A little bit of weak points like this bottom 6 in a sense, but if these guys get some development, then it might be decent. So there is that. And then quickly, our HL roster looks pretty good as well. A lot of 70 overall players, and a lot of them have potential. So I'm hoping that a lot of these guys get some growth this year. Volchenkov has not grown at all since we drafted him, really, and that kind of sucks because he was an 18th overall pick, so maybe we want to get him into the NHL lineup regardless at some point. But yeah, there's some like top 6 forwards down there and whatnot, so very much excited to see if those guys get some growth. I did also send down Berger to the AHL because of the chemistry, so hopefully he can find his way back to the NHL lineup at some stage, but for right now, he's back down there in the AHL, and yeah, hopefully the AHL team does pretty solid this year. Because Daryl Goalie is on the uprise and he could be our backup goalie even this season if we wanted to, but I'm probably going to wait till next season just because he's got that elite potential. And then yeah, hopefully he could be a good goalie that gets us far into the playoffs and all that type of thing. So there is that, and let's get started with the season simulation and see what this team is all about. I don't know if this team's going to be a playoff team this year because yeah, just because of the changes we went through. But who knows? Maybe we are going to be a playoff team if we miss the playoffs. Like I said also in last episode, it doesn't really matter that much because we get an elite prospect in, and we have like still, I'd like to say, like 5, 6, 7 years left of this franchise mode. So as long as we could get those elite players in, they have time to develop really quickly in the NHL, and hopefully that could propel us into at least another chance at a Stanley Cup Finals. So let's sim the preseason, see how we do in that, and then we will start simulating the regular season. But yeah, hopefully Ramo Jaskalainen could win another Selke. He's won like 6 Selkes, I believe, in the last 7 years. So it'd be really nice if he could win a 7th, because he's been probably my favorite player in this franchise mode for sure. And he had a really good preseason, 8 points in 7 games. He is getting up there in age, which is kind of concerning, because he might end up retiring within the next few seasons. As you can see, he's already 33 years of age, so I really hope that he doesn't retire at like 36. I'm hoping that he could be one of those guys that play into like their 40s almost, but no no confirmations if that's actually going to happen or not. But yeah, hopefully we could have a good regular season here for the most part. But like I said, if we don't, it's not really the end of the world, because you need to have some of those years where you kind of retool within a draft of glory and retool the roster in a sense. Okay, so let's go up to January the 1st, take it halfway at a time. So we'll go to January the 1st, and then we'll simulate the second half after we take a look at how it's been so far. But I'm hoping that Morgan Griffin does well for our team, because if that guy had 103 points in his first season in the AHL, maybe he could do some insane things in the NHL. And we're off to a pretty good start this year, which is great, but eventually that might drop off. 6-1-2, pretty solid first month for being a team that I wasn't sure if we're going to be a playoff team or not. And also pretty solid considering our goaltending is not really that great. 9-3-4. There's another win. There's another win. Damn, we're winning a lot of extra frame games as well, OTs and shootouts and whatnot. Yeah, this team's off to a fantastic start, and I don't really know why, because we shouldn't be technically this good, 16-5-4. Unless we're going to have a really sucky second half of the season, because that does happen at stages. But yeah, this team is doing really well for some weird reason. But hopefully that doesn't mean a first round exit, because 23-6-5, how are we this good? How are we this good? 24-7-5. I haven't even had my Arizona Coyotes franchise mode simulate this good with that low of an overall roster. But Morgan Griffin's over point per game in his first season. Okay, so it is Morgan Griffin's show. I figured Morgan Griffin would help us out with that 99 stats, and the fact that he was so good in his first AHL season, he's gonna be a very stud-worthy defenseman. Like at this stage, is his contract up for renewal soon? Let me go to all expiring. Let me go to defenders. No, not yet. When does his ELC end? Not for a few more seasons. Yeah, not for 2 more seasons. So after this, like for next year, we're going to re-sign this guy to an 8-year deal, I think, because I feel like regardless of his overall, he's going to do good just because of that 99 offensive awareness, 99 passing. But it's kind of weird when a defenseman is leading your team in points. He seems to be like kind of like a Roman Josi, I would say, because of the fact that he was kind of like a steal and the fact that he's leading his team in points as well. Very impressed with Morgan Griffin in his first season, and maybe that's why we're simulating as good as we are offensively. Just hope that it keeps up for the second half of the season, because I don't want to be one of those teams that like literally just missed the playoffs, because then we're not going to get a good pick. So let's go to February the 28th, the day before the trade deadline, and see if this continues with the winning trend. There's a couple extra frame losses, but it is what it is. We actually have almost as much extra frame losses as regular strength losses, which is kind of weird. But yeah, off to a little bit of a sluggish start to 2038, but as long as this team makes the playoffs, it should be fine, because I didn't want to start off the season hot and then just drop off a cliff. Yeah, not too bad. Still kind of back and forth. I mean, it's kind of good to not have a really good season, because there also might be a first-round exit, and it's not good to have a full-on bad season, I guess, in a sense, too. So if we could kind of be like one of those teams that just make it into the playoffs, I would rather that than just miss the playoffs. So 35-19-8, pretty damn good. And Jaskline is now leading the team in points, which is interesting. 57 points in 62 games. It's pretty good considering his age and all that. We are in a playoff spot with 78 points so far. We do still got 20 games left. It's pretty good. Wow. The Atlantic Division is weak, in a sense. 70 points is the last playoff team. So we're technically in a good spot right now, but hopefully our team just keeps on winning. I don't know what our strength is right now. Maybe we're just a good offensive team, because I don't feel like we should be a super good defensive team unless it's the defensive core and not the goaltending, because the goaltending is kind of not great, I'd say, overall wise. But maybe Soderstrom's having a really good year, because that could be the case. So let's go to March the 25th, just a little bit before the end of March, and we will go like this and sim past the deadline, because we don't really care about the deadline at all. Yeah, hopefully this team can just continue winning games and we can get ourselves back into these playoffs again, because once you're in the playoffs, you just really never know what could happen with your roster, right? So there's a couple wins and a couple losses. Kind of a little bit streaky at this stage, like 2 wins, 2 losses, but it is what it is. I'd say it's a pretty good season, though, for what our roster looks like. 43, 23, and 8, so we could hit 50 wins this year, which would be kind of nuts. Because, like, I honestly didn't think we would hit 50 wins this year. I thought it would be more like a 45-win season. So, okay, so there's 45 wins. We do got 5 games left. So, will we hit 50 wins? I hope that we don't go into the playoffs still on a win streak, because then we might get swept. 5 games. There's a loss. There's a win. There's a loss, and a loss. Okay, I would rather take those amount of losses we just had. 46, 27, and 9, we do make the playoffs at a lower seeded team, which means maybe we could be a cheese team that goes far. I never know what could happen with this now that we're in the playoffs. Our division was really strong, though. 4 teams with over 100 points, and then if you go over to the Atlantic Division, only 2 teams had 100 points, so that's kind of interesting. And yep, everything is simulated up to the 82 games. So let's take a look at our player stats and team stats just to see what we did well at. And then we'll take a look at who we're facing in the first round of the playoffs. This episode might be quite short just because that season was a lot faster, but Let's go to entire league-wise. So in the entire league, we finished 7th best, which is kind of impressive, I'd say, with our lack of depth. Goals for per game-wise, we had a pretty solid offense, it looks like. Yeah, I would say kind of like solid-ish. 3.24 is pretty good. Goals against-wise, though, we were the 2nd best defensive team in the NHL, so we were actually pretty good defensively in front of Soderstrom, and Soderstrom was probably pretty good. Wow. Didn't expect to be that good of a defensive team this year, but maybe also King helped us out on the defensive side on the bottom 6 for offense. Our power play was tragic at 12.9%, so hopefully that gets better in the playoffs. And our penalty kill was pretty good, 84.3%. Not bad. It's a good defensive team. Offense could definitely improve, but I would say it's not bad. 4 shorthanded goals this year, probably a lot from Jääskeläinen and Burns, I would assume. And then good home record, away record as well is pretty solid. No complaints really, except for the lack of offense in a sense. Let's take a look at these player stats, see what did what. And Jääskeläinen, yeah, 73 points, plus 26. This guy is just such a beast. He dropped down to an 88. He's now 34 years of age, man. He's close to retirement, and I am very scared. But yeah, he matched his total from last year, just 1 more goal instead of 1 more assist. Almost the exact same shooting percentage as well, which is kind of crazy, and they had the same amount of shots too, so very similar point totals, but yeah, very good season from him, I'd say, for the most part. As you can see, he's still over point per game also in the playoffs, so I'm very much hoping he could help us out this postseason. But yeah, very good stats from Jääskeläinen all around. Probably my favorite player in this franchise mode. And then we got Burns with 58 points and a plus 29. That's pretty solid. He still has another 1 more year after this, which is good, because we definitely need to keep him around. He's a very good defensive forward. He's a plus 191 with this team. He's got 600 points now in his career as well. So there's that. Pasquale, 33 points is actually better than I expected from him, so very good stats from Pasquale for 79. Patan, 29 points, not bad. A little bit disappointing considering he's getting paid $6 million. And he got outperformed by a guy that's making 1.875. So I don't know how long Patan's going to be with this team, depending on his asking price, I guess, in the offseason. Radulov, 18 points for the 75 overall. Not really that great. He didn't get any power play time, though. So, yeah, he might be one of these guys we look at replacing. If one of the guys in the AHL end up getting better overall-wise, maybe we could call them up instead. Left-wing-wise, Thornton had 62 points this year, 35 goals. I'm really much hoping that he could score more goals in the playoffs this year, because last year he was kind of disappointing. He's actually been a disappointing playoff player in terms of scoring goals. Regular season-wise, he scores a lot of 30-goal seasons, but playoff-wise, he kind of struggles at times. Forster, 46 points and a plus 20. That's actually pretty good, better than I expected, but once again, he is getting older, and he might drop off. Jacobs with 20 goals and 23 assists, not bad. We might have to re-sign him to a big contract, because in his first 3 seasons here, he's almost had 20 goals each year. He's a pretty good goal scorer. Not too bad. Lucic, 21 points, not bad. King, only 16 points, so he didn't really get a lot of ice time. He didn't develop at all so far this year, but still, I wouldn't say that's a bad rookie season from him. And then Duclair, also 16 points. Right wing wise, Scuderi had 61 points, which is pretty good. He is still signed for a little bit at $6 million. Yeah, 26 goals. I definitely would take that from him. So we had a lot of 20 goal scorers. And then defensively, look at this. Morgan Griffin, 67 points in his rookie year and a plus 40. Do you think this guy's going to win the Calder? I wonder. Because that's a very impressive way to start off your career as a defenseman. Very good defensive stats as well, in terms of plus minus. I feel like he could win the Rookie of the Year, depending on how good forwards are this year. Good block shots, hits, not really a whole lot, but then again, he's an OFD. How much penalty minutes did he take in the NHL this year? Only 4 penalty minutes, so he doesn't take a lot of penalty minutes either. Yeah, I really like this guy. He needs to be signed for life, I feel like, at this point, because he outperformed an elite defenseman. So that's kind of neat. So Teratukin, 55 points is also really good. Sedin, 53 points is really good. So these 3 defensemen very much helped us out in terms of offense. Hedman was pretty solid, I'd say, again, but I don't really like that he's making over $8 million. McGrath, 19 points, and Goddard, 15. So not bad from the defensive core. Very good, actually, from the defensive core, I should say. And then Soderstrom was pretty solid. 33, 19, and 7 with 3 shutouts and 908 save percentage and a 2.71. And Sweat was pretty solid as the backup. They both had pretty similar statistics, I'd say. So pretty good from the goaltending despite the overalls. Let's take a quick look at the entire league-wise. So entire league, let's go by forwards to start it off with. So George Karl of the Bruins is the best player with 128 points. My God. I don't think I've seen a guy simulate that well. And then Chiodo 122, Alfredson 120, Scarabelli and Kamel both had 105, but that's it for the 100-point players. And look, our former player Dmitry Korostin somehow was simulating really good in Columbus. He had 96 points this year. Damn. That's impressive. And then Numanen, the rookie, oh, this guy's going to win Rookie of the Year for sure. This guy was the first overall pick this year, or this last season. And he had a 57-goal rookie season. So, yeah, so much for Griffin winning Rookie of the Year, because, yeah, Numanen is definitely going to take that. Sam Seidu also up there in points. Best goal scorer this year was Chiodo, but Numanen was literally close to winning a Richard in his rookie season, so that's very impressive for that Bruins rookie. Kind of sucks that we didn't get to draft that guy. But yeah, Griffin was the best defenseman in the entire league. He might actually win the Norris in his first season, which would be a record, I think. I don't know if any rookie defenders ever won the Norris, unless Brian Leach or something did that one year. But I don't think that ever happened before. Maybe Paul Coffey did it. So yeah, Morgan Griffin, potential Norris candidate because of the plus-minus and the point totals. Unless for some reason they give it to Jeffrey On, who had a little bit less points but a better plus-minus. I hope they don't give it to Jeffrey On, because that would be very impressive if Griffin got in his first season. Wow. Teratugan also up there, Sedin also up there. We had 3 defensemen in the top 5 for points. That is really impressive. I don't think I've ever had that happen before, so very good. Best goaltender this year for wins was Nemes in Minnesota. But best in terms of like shutouts, Travis Hamonic and Drake McAllister. Best save percentage by a starter was Selleck in Florida with a 918, so it's probably between him and Winehandle for the Vezina. Best goals against this year by a starter was Selleck, so yeah, more than likely he's one of the two of these guys. Yeah, I'd say it's one of the two guys because of their save percentages. And then best rookie this year was by far Numanen, as we expected. But Griffin, if this was not Numanen's rookie year, Griffin could have won the Calder as well, which would have been impressive to win a Calder and a Norris in your first season. But yeah, I definitely think I got to re-sign this guy for a long-term deal when I get the chance, because he seems to assimilate well. As long as he's with good players and on the power play, he will do well. So there is that. And who are we facing in the first round is the question. And hopefully we could beat them. Pull off an upset or something like we did with Calgary last season. And it's going to be the Edmonton Oilers. Okay, so we have faced Edmonton before. It was last year as well, but it was in the second round. So they probably have a similar roster, which means they have probably a lack of depth scoring, I would say, because of contract situation. And yeah, that's going to stay true in a sense. But they do look better than last year, I think. So they have Caldwell, they have Jaspers, and Boyce. Boyce obviously being that best player on their top line. Second line, Aaron Muir, Alex Turcotte, as well as Rick Hawley, who also scores a lot of goals when he gets the chance, so we can't write off that guy. Third line has Johan Silvergard, Victor Jamnov, and Jonah Pekka. And a fourth line of Ulf Olsson, as well as Jackson Cox and Billy Duplowicz. So, yeah, that forward core is a lot better than it was last season, because if I remember correctly, their forward core had a lot of 70s in it last year, so they must have offloaded somebody in order to re-sign some better players or whatnot. But that defensive core is still not great. Ali Parent, as well as Amrit Shaw, Damon Tanabe, and Stefan Ouellette, and in the top 6 of Louis Simard and Zachary Eakin. So yeah, the defensive core is better than it was last year, I'd say, as well. But yeah, these three, I would say, are all like top 6 and below. So when you're playing a 73 overall in your defensive core, not great. And in best goalies they have are Charlie Howe, basically, and that's it, 85 overall. And then they're still rocking a very low overall goalie, who literally is in his first season ever. Wow. So the goalie that they had last year, I guess they must have dropped down to the minors or whatever. But Yeah, their goaltending situation is kind of interesting. And then depth-wise, they have Malatesta, they have De Silva, and they have Raymond. I believe Malatesta was in their lineup last year, so they definitely did make some sort of a change, I believe, since we last played them. Final thing, let's do a little bit of a comparison just to see what they did during the regular season to us, and then that'll be it for this episode. Because I just want to see what the goal differentials are like and whatnot. Okay, so we are in the same division. No, we're not. Let's go to Western Conference. And we are right around the same spot. We had the exact same amount of points this season as them. They scored a tiny bit more goals, only 3 more goals than us, and we allowed less goals by them by 8. So very similar teams in a sense. Power play percentage they were much better at, and then our penalty kill was a little bit better than theirs. So don't really know who's going to end up winning this series. It's probably a toss-up. Just depends on who the AI wants to win. Sucks that we don't have home ice advantage, but it is what it is. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Houston Sharpshooters Draft to Glory franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll take it to round 1 against the Oilers as we look to make it back to the second round. And yeah, hopefully Griffin can continue doing what he's been doing on the defensive core. And then yeah, hopefully we get guys like Gene Thornton and whatnot to step up. So I'm guessing down below, and I'll see you guys next time.